I know that when we work with nonprofit organizations who are clients of ours or any others, there is sort of this this idea that we need to not only target millennials and particular new initiatives or anything else. Does it become a separate component of the organization, or is it become more inclusive where we're doing marketing and branding and it's a segmented piece but yet part of the whole? What's sort of your view on that?
Hey, Derek, you ask great questions. And that is a great setup, because our view is that they're not a separate audience unless your product is something that really is targeted to them. When I ask my students, what brands really stand out for you or resonate for you, they're the same ones that resonate for all of us, and for pretty much the same reason. I mean, try to think of a brand that is specific to Gen Y. It's really tough. Certainly in the entertainment area, there are things that skew more in their direction, but in terms of, Apple, that's for everybody. Gatorade is for everybody. Nike is for everybody. Even Zipcar, has applications. So, again, we see them as trend bellwethers. If you can understand how to communicate with millennials, you're probably going to have an easier time communicating with other generations as well.
Absolutely. That's great to hear, because I think that everybody thinks it's a separate component and so on.
Can I go back here to one of the earlier points about making your product relevant to millennials, even if the topic perhaps isn't?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Millennials are, think about the things that they're interested in right now. The economy and jobs are pretty much on the mind of all of them, especially recent graduates. They recognize that they are coming into, growing up at a time when their opportunities are going to be quite different than other generations. All nonprofits have opportunities to give millennials experience, internships, things that they could talk about, social currency. Those are things that even if the cause isn't necessarily relevant, the opportunity to get involved is. And I think that's a way that just about any nonprofit can reach out to millennials.
It's a great suggestion. Absolutely. I think that is a definite way for the experience, especially right now, given where some job markets may be in local communities. Absolutely.
Yeah, most nonprofit organizations have deep ties into the community or into corporations, sponsors. Think about ways that you can connect young people to the assets that you have. I mean, that would be very meaningful to them.
So you're at Notre Dame, which I didn't mention in the introduction, which is a great institution. And sort of going in that light, we have a lot of universities as well that we may work with and so on. What's your view on millennial engagement after graduation, sort of this alumni relationship that occurs with institutions? Sometimes, if you talk to some of the staff of fundraising departments, they say it's incredibly challenged, we lose them, and so on. What's your sort of opinion, or what's your advice for those people who work at alumni affairs or work in fundraising departments at institutions to working with millennials?
We've actually done quite a bit of research on that for the university. Talked with students who are still students as well as young alumni, which we define as up to 10 years post-graduation. And Notre Dame, I think, is perhaps a little unique, but students really go through a mourning process when they leave college. I mean, it is the defining experience of their lives up to that point. Suddenly they're on their own. They don't have the natural community that surrounds them at college, and they really look to connect back to their college life. So it should be a very easy thing for colleges to continue to keep those ties alive, especially now with social media. In terms of actually turning alumni into donors, that actually isn't as hard as you would think either. I mean, especially if you define giving back not just in terms of money, but find ways that they can connect with prospective students to help give back by coming back into classrooms and talking about what they do. There are lots of opportunities. It's a natural bridge, and one that universities should definitely cultivate.
That's great. Well, thank you. I think that's very, very helpful. All right, so imagine I'm an organization. I definitely realize the importance and potential to work with really millennials and getting them involved in the work that we do as a nonprofit. What's your recommendation on where I start? What's sort of the first sort of steps you would give me as a nonprofit professional?
Well, I would start with the millennials in your own organization. They really understand their cohort, and I would give them a voice and listen to them. Another obvious step would be to reach out a little further to your volunteers, to people who have touched your organization in some way, and understand, what it is that drew them to the organization in the first place, and what more, they think that you could be doing. There are a lot of really good studies out there about millennials and nonprofits at this point. We maintain a wiki of studies about millennials, secondary source information, and I think we have a couple hundred different studies on there now, and there's a whole page just devoted to millennials and nonprofits. So you can also see what's already been done and look at some of the really great case histories.
Great. All right, future question. Where do you think what's going to happen with this millennial generation in the future, and is there anything that we should be prepared for?
I think they're going to be remarkable. I've been privileged to have 2 millennial-age children of my own, as well as to have been seeing these students come through my classroom for the last 8 years. And I think that they are so well equipped for the world as it's going to be. I get annoyed when I hear a lot of this speaking of entitlement. I think in some ways there are, of course, always people who have felt entitled. Yeah. But as a generation, I think what happens is that their confidence gets misinterpreted as I deserve it. Mm-hmm. And in some ways their confidence has been earned. I mean, they really have done a lot more, by the time they turn 20 than I did. I mean, they know a lot more. They're very capable. They know how to get things done. They know how to find information, and they're really ready. And I think one of the frustrations of this recession is that a lot of them feel like their lives are on hold as they wait for the world to be ready to embrace them.